Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Trinidadi, and let's queer up the USA view. Out and Advocate described crisis in LGBTQ publishing over DEI backlash. A growing crisis is unfolding in LGBTQ publishing as conservative attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion ripple through the media world. Brands are increasingly pulling away from sponsorships with LGBTQ outlets. Mark Berryhill, CEO of Equal Pride, the parent company of The Advocate, Out and Pride.com, told the Guardian that companies recently have been a bit more cautious than they were in the past. Berryhill added, quote, "We've tried to do a better job in the political climate of just selling the importance of our buying power. Everybody's cautious, and I don't think it's just LGBTQ. I think they're cautious in general right now with their work with minority-owned companies," end quote. The impact has been severe. Tad Warner, CEO of Gay Times, revealed the magazine has lost 80% of its advertisers in the past year, with more than $6.7 million in expected revenue. Executives at Amalia, WAP, and Attitude Magazine's publisher, Stream Publishing, report similar struggles. This shift began even before Donald Trump's executive order terminating federal DEI positions. Online campaigns led by right-wing figures, including failed filmmaker turned failed congressional candidate Robbie Starbuck, targeted companies until many dropped DEI initiatives and cut ties with Pride and Juneteenth sponsorships. The losses are clear. Heritage of Pride, which produces New York City Pride, dropped from 5 platinum sponsors to just 1. Pride organizers in San Francisco, Oakland, St. Louis, Columbus, and Toronto have reported similar setbacks. Berryhill says the challenge is reframing sponsorships as smart business, not just charity, as he put it. Quote, "You should do it because it's the right thing to support LGBTQ journalism. We're small, we need to get the word out, we have important stories to tell, but it's also a good business decision," end quote. Berryhill of Out and The Advocate is a resident here in South Florida. I think he's got the right idea. I think the right-wing party of this country has tried to spin DEI to be not merit-based, that you're getting lesser by hiring minorities and people of varying abilities. I think the issue is that we need to reframe it so that we're showing that DEI is more about fair hiring practices to get the best people. The reason why we have DEI, at least for me, maybe it's different for some other people, but for me, it's because we do have discrimination built in. So maybe you look at a black woman who is interviewing for a job, and because of whatever internal bias that you may or may not know that you have, you look at her as being maybe less able to lead than the white man that comes in after. And it's not to say that the white man may be more capable than the black woman. Maybe it's the opposite, but it's about having a level playing field and trying to take out the bias from it. The best, I think, story comes from the orchestral classical world. It was always seen that women were not as good players as men, and they did the screen experiment and put up screens, and within a few years, the genders flipped.
Wow.
And it was more female than male that were winning the jobs because of that bias. So I think we need to make sure that we stress that it is for the betterment of the company that we're getting the best people by taking out the bias. Now, maybe they don't need to harp on that part so much, but maybe talk about how they're going to have bias-free interviews. And I think that would...
Screens during interviews.
Something that's similar to that, or maybe that they have a female who is interviewing another female, although a female can have a bias against another female, of course. But other ways that we make sure that we're taking the bias out of it. And another thing is kind of the counter to that point is that many DEI policies have been instituted poorly and have not gotten the goal that they were looking to get. So I think that we need to also look at how we're implementing DEI policies, because I think the federal positions have been taken out, but individual companies can do whatever they want to do with it.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that they need to stress how fair it is and why we're getting the best people. And they also need to talk about how they're implementing it to make sure that you're actually getting the right results.
We've got to change DEI. We've got to change that acronym immediately, because unfortunately many people just hear DEI and they go, woke. No, that's it. I don't want any of that, without even knowing what it even stands for or anything like that. You know, with everything that you just said, Trini, you're absolutely right. My thing is that when you have a president at the helm that doesn't want to level the playing field, then why would companies follow suit?
Well, we also have to. We also should zoom out here, right? Because when we're talking about DA, there's different things that fall into that bucket. You mentioned,
women, ableism.
Sure, you mentioned hiring practices, but also, when we're specifically talking about sort of this media landscape and sponsorships for some of these publications, investing in ad revenue. At the end of the day, we have to think. I as an organizer, as an activist, I'm thinking about who are the decision makers and what are the things that are motivating them. And the decision makers here are companies, their CEOs, their executives in these businesses, and what motivates them? It's money, right? At the end of the day, they're the people that they respond to are their shareholders, and it's also it's their consumer, right? And so we could talk all we want about about Donald Trump and how this administration is pushing back against DEI, but the people who are actually at the end of the day who are actually gonna be motivating the decision makers for these companies and making the decisions about where they're spending their ad dollars, what publications they're investing into, are the people who make the money. That is their customer base. So the reality, when I talked about Robbie Starbuck, we have to get better about boycotts. We have to be better. We talk about the queer dollar and the idea of this, like, the wealthy gay man and who doesn't have kids and is a double double income, no kids household, right?
Never heard of that.
Yeah. Right, but and the queer dollar is a real thing that we do not we've lost our way, right, in leveraging it, and we have to make sure that we are investing in companies that are investing back into us. That means purchasing from queer-owned businesses. That means not purchasing from companies that have pulled back their DEI policies, that have divested from LGBT nonprofits, that have divested from queer media, that are not spending their ad dollars there. Do not spend your money there, right? Because that is the thing. At the end of the day, when boycotts are targeted and they are consistent and you take them seriously, it does actually lead to change, and it's part of what led to a lot of these companies starting to invest in LGBTQ plus companies and media in the first place.
Well, and it's affected, like Walmart, for example. You can see the boycott working. Unfortunately, everybody would have to, get on board to do that.
It's
not easy. It's not easy
because when you have, as you were saying, the political landscape it's so polarized that people like Robbie Starbuck were able to galvanize such huge movements. I was shocked that he had as much influence as he did. And I mean, he really was responsible for so many of these Pride sponsors pulling out because he got enough backlash to get to the company for the other side to boycott as well. So if you're saying, like, you've got the MAGA people and the people that are, like, not even MAGA, but they're just kind of like tailing along with that they're boycotting, and then we've got our side boycotting. It's like, well, whose boycott is going to make more of a difference? I think there's more of them maybe than there's more of us. Yeah. So it's difficult. Like, I think a whole rebranding is like what you're saying, of like, maybe we just get rid of the term DEI and maybe we just figure out, like, how to, like, what I forget his name that I just quoted him. What he was saying as a solution is trying to figure out how we rebrand this so that we're getting better results from the companies. Yeah. Because if we're getting better profits and our shareholders are happier, then everybody's happier with it. So we just have to make sure that people are understanding that this is not just a handout to somebody. No. This is to make our companies better and more profitable.
But when you think about the Advocate and Out, like, those folks are storytellers, boys. They're our historians. They are the ones who tell our stories, right? And we lose them, or they become smaller. 80% of the advertisers gone from Gay Times. Holy shit.
And that's where they get their money.
Holy shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's mind blowing. Again, this is our visibility. This is how we're seen. Okay. These things shrink. We shrink, basically, so it's like, I hate to go back to those, older gay drinks, whatever you are. Right. But those are the people that we need to target. They need to be out knowing that we need their support now more than ever.
It's really interesting that in the 90s, I mean, that's probably when gay activism, it was more in my mind and what we need to do. I feel like this is the first time, maybe in the past 2 years, that I felt like we've gone truly backwards. And so trying to come up with these strategies of how we're going to retake back our community and society, it's an ongoing conversation for the next couple of years that we're in this together.
At least. And that is the big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.